ललिता।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। और बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण, बलराम शुक्ल जी से जैसी अपेक्षा की जाती है वो चित्त प्रसन्न हो जाता है सुनकर के। बहुत ही परिपूर्ण सत्र हुआ। We have had a rich feast of ideas and the congregation of so many scholars, experts. I am grateful to all of them, and we start the valedictory session. प्रवीण पंड्या महोदया महाभागा मया अनुरुध्यन्ते समापन सत्रस्य संचालनं ते कुर्वन्तु। संस्कृतेन ते संचालनं करिष्यन्ति। He will be speaking in Sanskrit as an anchor, but the experts or participants who are speaking in this session, they may speak either in Hindi or English, not in Sanskrit. And I'm afraid we don't have time left for discussion. So if any participants have any issues for discussion, they may send them to 3 of the participants who are going to speak in the valedictory session, Professor Siddhartha Singh, Dr. Shaminaaz Khan, and Pratik. And if they find time, they are also given very short time. I'm sorry for that. Within 3 to 5 minutes, they have to sum up whatever they want to say. So Praveen Pandya ji to come over here and conduct the session, and Professor Varakhedy, the presentation which he was to make yesterday will make his presentation. The session may be delayed a little, and after that in the end, and then he will deliver his chair's remarks also, and after that Thanksgiving and the deliberations come to an end with that. Praveen Pandya ji.
नमांसि आचार्येभ्यः सर्वान् प्रणम्य अहं तत्र यथा कालक्षेपः न स्यात् तथा किमपि वच्मि। त्रिभिः प्रतिभागिभिः 3-4 निमिषैः स्वटिप्पणी संक्षिप्य प्रस्तौभ्या इति निवेदयामि। आदौ प्राश्निकप्रवरा शमिनाज़ खान वर्या मया आहूयते स्ववक्तव्याय। शमिनाज़ खान महोदय।
धन्यवाद महोदय। गुरु ब्रह्मा गुरु विष्णु गुरु देवो महेश्वर गुरु साक्षात परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। The great Guru Tripathi Guruji and honorable scholars, I am incredibly grateful to all of you for providing me the opportunity
Dr. Khan, we are not able to hear you. Yes, now it's okay, I think, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
During the 4 days of the workshop, the great scholars introduced us to the new Shastra, Vāda Shastra. I heard people say that in Indian tradition, a disciple blindly follows his guru's thoughts. He agrees with the guru on everything. He never argues with him. But in the workshop, we learned that there is a long tradition of Vāda, Samvada, a healthy argument where a people ask several questions to his guru until he is satisfied with his query. Vāda exists in most of the Shastra or texts or tradition, where learned men, women, people, sons, kings, and everybody engaged in Vāda. In this one-day workshop, we have studies about several Shastra, Nyaya, Natya Shastra, Dharma Shastra, Kama Shastra, Vedas, Puranas, Mahabharata, and Ramayana. The scholars have discussed almost all the Shastras. I'm not a philosophy student, and for me, Nyaya is one of the challenging philosophy. But the way the scholars have explained the Nyaya terms like Anuman, Vigyapti, and the Vāda tradition in it, the scholars made it easy and enjoyable. The workshop gave us a new vision to look at the Shastras differently and open new vistas for research. Guruji's wisdom enlightened me, and I'm sure it inspired us all. Hence, I am so eager to attend the next Jnana Yajna. Thank you, the great Guru, Tripathi Guruji, and all the distinguished scholars for sharing their wisdom and enlightening us. Dhanyavad.
धन्यवादः अत्र भवत्याः वाग्मितापूर्ण व्याख्यानाय। इदानीं च प्रतीक महोदयः निवेद्यते।
Namaskaraha, sir. Namasarvebhyaha. For inviting an Alpagnya like me to speak in this place which is filled with so many scholars, I am reminded of a Tamil verse that says, "Iyaduvado Garudar kedire iravikkedir minmini aduvado." You know, a small housefly is dancing before Garuda and saying, "I am also great," and a firefly is dancing before Surya and saying, "I am also emitting Jwala." It is like that for me to speak before scholars like Tripathi ji. But still, even though the Jugnu keeps doing that before the Surya, I will do this like that. So, you know, like we started this whole workshop, I'm thankful to Tripathi ji, where the whole Vada tradition, in the sense we see each Shastra as its own Purva Paksha, Siddhanta. Anyway, whenever we study, we see it like that, you know, in a separate sense. But to theorize on that and to give a historical purview based on pure debate, and I think is something that is a contribution of Professor Dr. Tripathi, and I think we are all grateful for that. And what all Vādas can generate right in the Upanishad, Bhrugurvai Varani, when he goes and asks what is it, and again he goes and asks, and only that dialogue, tapasa brahma vijñāsasva tapo brahmheti, that tapas that is generated by Vāda, that itself is Brahman. That is the Taittiriya's ultimate message that we have. And therefore, I think to understand the essence of India, what she has contributed to the world of intelligentsia, intellectual systems in the world, I think this Vāda, the tradition of Vāda as theorized by Dr. Tripathi, is something that is very, very essential to understand anything that India has written in any field, Nyaya, Rasa, Dharma, whatever be it that we can think of. But to understand even a bit of that, if we are to, you know, of course, if we say, have you done Ganga Snana? Not every drop of Ganga we are bathing. Only one, you know, cup of Ganga water we can put. Even that Shastra Jnana, if we need to have, this Vāda that is being theorized by Professor Tripathi is something that is very, very essential to us. And one thing that I want to highlight is we usually have a traditional scholar, a Yanayika or a Vedanti or a Mimamsaka who can speak for their Shastra, or we will have professors and academic scholars who will publish papers. But to have both as in a single person, a Shastrakara who is a traditional scholar and an academician as Dr. Tripathi with us, I think we are all very fortunate for that. And one last thing I will say is to highlight not just sticking to a very blind purview of Samskrita and Samskrita Shastras, but to go further and to talk about the multilingualism and multiculturalism is something that is, and not only within what we traditionally understand as quote unquote India, or what in the current political and other cultural contexts as well, but to go beyond those boundaries and to speak about all of that, I think we are very, very grateful. Right from 7th century, when Kumarila Bhatta writes, Yada Andhra Dravida Bhashayam Idrishi Swachanda Kalpana, Parasika Barbara Yavanadika Bhashadishu Vartatevanava iti na vidmaha. He says, I don't know, but I want to learn Parasika and Barbara and Yavana Bhashas. Who is saying Kumarila Bhatta in 7th century? And that spirit that Bhatta Mimamsaka had in 6th, 7th century is kept alive today by us in this Sadas. I think that itself is a tribute to the Vāda tradition as theorized by Dr. Tripathi. Again, I convey my Sashtanga Namaskaras to all the scholars here.
साधुवादः भवते। इदं क्षणे च प्रोफेसर सिद्धार्थ सिंह महोदयाः आहूयन्ते स्ववक्तव्याय। प्रोफेसर सिंह महोदय।
धन्यवाद प्रवीण जी। शैले शैले न माणिक्यम मौक्तिकम न गजे गजे, साधो नहीं सर्वत्र चंदनम न बने बने। Such is our great Guruji, Professor Radha Vallabh Tripathi ji, a man of profound wisdom, a man of encyclopedic knowledge. I bow in reverence. This workshop of Vāda enosculates several fibers of Indian knowledge system, which emanates from Veda till date. And it was a kind of great revelation for me. And I often try to compare East and West and their dialogues. And when we remember Tulsidas, Nana Puran Nigma Nigam Sammatam Yad Ramayana, this one shlok by Tulsidas actually summarizes the dialogic relationship of a writer, how he is dealing with the tradition. The same thing I found in T.S. Eliot's tradition and individual talent. And later on, or before that, what we find that how East and West were involved in dialogues. Guruji talked about Schopenhauer. And more than that, if we study some of the great poets of the West, especially people like Boston Brahmins, Emerson, when he was writing Self-Reliance, he was actually rewriting Gita for Americans. So, and West actually followed our tradition in 20th century very ardently. They followed, especially in literature, when T.S. Eliot started writing tradition, individual talent, or W.B. Yeats writes a poem like A Dialogue of Soul and Self. Such kind of writings, not only in literature, but even in theories, which we study today. Now, after this workshop, I realized that how tactfully West is actually following the methodology which today, in these 4 days, Professor Radha Vallabh Tripathi has enumerated this methodology of Vāda. Either you take concept of intertextuality or hermeneutics or discourse analysis, or even Bakhtin's dialogues are all following the same methodology. And one point which Professor Ganesha just pointed out, that even people of the West, some scholars of the West are trying to create dialogues between Eastern mysticism and science. Especially, I am reminded of Rencourt's The Eye of Shiva and The Tao of Physics by Capra. Such dialogues, they are creating nowadays, and still, I think we need to create such kind of dialogues in present situation, in the contemporary situation. Now, one more thing which I would like to speak, Gurudev talked about J. Krishnamurti, Kabir, and Buddha. But I was, at the same time, I was reminded of Acharya Rajneesh Osho and Guru Gorakhnath. Guru Gorakhnath was also a great dialogue person in his times, and he actually established dialogue between Lok and Yoga and Shastra. So what Guruji gave us from the etymology, from the development of Vāda, from sacred and theological to secular, and from its significance and how it acquired, especially when he talked about the dialogues in Mahabharata, it was great revelation for me. And I hope that Gurudev will keep on organizing such workshops, since time is very short. But still, Guruji के लिए बोलना तो सूर्य को दीपक दिखाने के समान है. जो very special thing of this workshop had been that he collected a galaxy of great eminent scholars, and perhaps it would not be an exaggeration if I say some of the greatest scholars of the world in their fields are here among us. And I'm really grateful that Gurudev has opted me to speak on this occasion. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
अत्यंतं साधुवादः अत्र भवद्भ्यः गोरक्षनाथ विषये अत्र भवद्भिः यत् प्रतिपादितं तत् सत्यं. वस्तुतः गोरक्षस्य चिन्तने न केवलं बौद्धदर्शनम् अपितु शैवदर्शनम् अपि तत्र प्रतिष्ठितं वर्तते. शैवदर्शनस्य सिद्धान्तः अपि च अस्माकं या सन्तपरम्परा वर्तते तत्र राजस्थाने जाम्बोजी महाराज इत्येते बहवः सन्तपुरुषाः सञ्जाताः. ते सन्तः इति पदं भागवते प्रयुक्तं, संस्कृते प्रायः सत् इति प्रयोगः वर्तते. ये सन्तः सन्ति तेषां साहित्ये गोरक्षस्य महान् प्रभावः, स च प्रभावः परम्पराम् अनुसरति इति सत्यम्. इदानीं च अहं निवेदयामि मन्ये आचार्य रमाकांत पांडे वर्या सन्ति वा? आचार्य रमाकांत पांडे वर्या
न सन्ति, न
मया
दृश्यन्ते
न
प्रायशः।
दृश्यन्ते। हाँ, इदानीं आचार्य वसंत कुमार भट्ट वर्याः मया निवेद्यन्ते, तेषां परिचयं दत्वा अहं कालक्षेपं न करोमि, ते सुख्यातः विख्यातः विद्वांसः इति। भट्टपादाः।
नमो नमः।
आचार्य
नमो नमः। बहुत कुछ कहा गया है और कोई बिंदु ऐसा नहीं है जो मेरे पुरोगामी वक्ताओं ने न कहा हो। फिर भी आचार्य राधावल्लभ त्रिपाठी जी के बारे में कुछ कहना है तो पाणिनि के सूत्र का जो लक्षण होता है, स्वल्पाक्षरम असंदिग्धम सारवत विश्वतो मुखम, इस रूप में ये 8 व्याख्यान जो यहाँ प्रस्तुत हुए वो स्वल्पाक्षर, असंदिग्ध, सारवत और विश्वतोमुख, कोई ऐसा ज्ञान का बिंदु नहीं रहा जो अस्पृश्य रहा हो। मंत्र से लेकर धूर्ताख्यान तक की बात भी प्रस्तुत कर दी। मैं याद कर रहा था कि धूर्ताख्यान आता है या नहीं, तो पूरी मिथक कथा पर भी जो उसकी अवहेलना या उसका उपहास करते हुए भी जो वाद होता रहा है हमारी परंपरा में, उसका भी यहाँ समावेश हो गया। इस अर्थ में वो विश्वतोमुखी उनकी दृष्टि है। ब्राह्मण परंपरा, बौद्ध परंपरा, श्रवण परंपरा और उनके बीच में होता रहा बार बार का जो संवाद, वो किस रूप में हमारे वहाँ विकसित होता रहा, और वहाँ से लेकर विदेशी यहाँ जो यात्री आए, जो मुस्लिम कल्चर आया, उन सब के साथ ये जो वाद प्रवर्तित होता रहा वो बड़ा रोमांचकारी रहा। और हमारे लिए ये पूरा सत्र आई ओपनर जैसा मैं कह सकता हूँ कि कहाँ वाद नहीं प्रवर्तित हो रहा है। हमारे गुजरात के कवि हैं, कवि कलापी, ज्या ज्या नजर मारी पड़े यादी भरी त्या आपने, जहां पर भी मेरी दृष्टि जाती है भगवान का वास मुझे दिखाई दे रहा है। उसी रूप में प्रोफेसर राधावल्लभ त्रिपाठी जी ने पूरा संस्कृत साहित्य जो भी देखा उसमें कहीं पर भी उनको वाद की अनुपस्थिति नहीं दिखाई दी। सर्वत्र वाद कैसे प्रवर्तित हो रहा है, तो उनका ये जो एक विशिष्ट दृष्टिकोण है वो देखकर भी एक आश्चर्य होता है। इस संदर्भ में भर्तृहरि की एक कारिका मेरे मन में 2 दिन से रम रही है। नसोस्ति प्रत्ययो लोके यश शब्दानुगमादृते अनुविद्धम इव ज्ञानम सर्वम शब्देन भासते। भर्तृहरि ने शब्द के विषय में ये बात जो कही है कि दुनिया में ऐसा कोई ज्ञान नहीं है जिसमें शब्द अनुस्यूत न हो। पूरा ज्ञान मंडल, पूरा ज्ञान राशि वो शब्द से भासित हो रहा है। तो मुझे लगता है कि भर्तृहरि की इस कारिका में जो शब्द है वो वाद में उपचरित हो जाता है। राधावल्लभ त्रिपाठी जी के पूरे वक्तव्य को सुनते हुए लगता है कि ऐसा कोई प्रत्यय नहीं है जिसमें वाद का अनुगम न हो, वाद उसमें अनुस्यूत न हो। कोई ऐसा ज्ञान नहीं है जो बिना वाद से भासित हो सकता है। तो इस रूप में आज भर्तृहरि की इस कारिका का एक नया अर्थ गठन भी मेरे सामने आया, जो इस सत्र में यदि मैं सम्मिलित न हुआ होता, उन्होंने मुझे निमंत्रित नहीं किया होता, तो मैं इनसे वंचित रह जाता। आचार्य जी बार बार ऐसे शिव संकल्प करते रहते हैं, बड़ा आश्चर्य होता है और अत्यंत विनम्रता के साथ मस्तक हमारा उनके चरणों में प्रणाम करता है, क्योंकि ऐसा शिव संकल्प करना और 2 घूंट पानी भी नहीं पी रहे हैं, हम ये देख रहे हैं। वो निरंतर 3 घंटे लगातार बोलते रहते हैं और हमको इस महान ज्ञान से लाभान्वित करते रहते हैं। बार बार मैं उनके चरणों में नमस्कार करता हूं। और ऐसा नहीं है कि वो केवल अकेले बोलते हैं, राजा राम शुक्ल जी को भी लिया है, कला आचार्य को भी लिया है और बहुत सारे आशुतोष माथुर, सबको सुनने का एक बड़ा मौका मिला। और ये जो बात हमारे परंपरा में है कि श्रुतयोपि भिन्ना स्मृतयोपि भिन्ना नैको मुनिर्यस्य वचः प्रमाणम धर्मस्य तत्वम निहितम गुहायाम। तो ये जो धर्म का तत्व है, तो तत्व बुभुत्सा के लिए वाद होता है, केशव मिश्र ऐसा कहते हैं। तो ये जो धर्म का तत्व गुहा में निहित है, उसको बाहर निकालने के लिए वाद का होना अनिवार्य है, जिससे हम सबको लाभान्वित किया। इसलिए हम उनके ऋणी हैं। और मैं कृतज्ञता का भाव प्रकट करते हुए आप सबको नमस्कार करके मेरी वाणी को विराम देता हूँ। नमो नमः।
धन्यवादाः आचार्याः। तालः च्यवते हस्तात् इति अस्माभिः श्रुतं, किन्तु अद्य अस्माभिः कालो हस्ते गृहीतः। यतो हि नववादनात् परं 40 निमिषाः यदा अतीता भवन्ति तावत् पर्यन्तं भट्टमहोदयानां व्याख्यानं जायेत इति निश्चितं, किन्तु ततः 5 निमेषपूर्वमेव अस्माभिः समग्रः कार्यक्रमः सम्पादितः। तत् महते सुखाये इदानीम् अहम् आचार्यान् निवेदयामि, श्रीनिवास वरखेडी महोदयान् ते स्वकीयं विशिष्टं व्याख्यानम् अस्मभ्यः प्रदत्तु इति। तदर्थं च सौविध्यं त्रिपाठीवर्याः कल्पयन्तु इति।
तत् कल्पितं वर्तते, ते शेयर कर्तुं शक्नुवन्ति।
सर्वेभ्यः प्रणामाः। रेस्पेक्टेड श्रद्धेय आचार्य राधावल्लभ त्रिपाठी जी, जिनको मैं हमेशा मेरा गुरु मानता हूँ, साक्षात उनके चरणों में मेरा अध्ययन नहीं हुआ है, लेकिन उनके अनेक ग्रंथों के द्वारा और उनके व्याख्यानों के द्वारा जितना ज्ञान मुझे प्राप्त हुआ है, वह प्रायशः मेरे गुरु से साक्षात अध्ययन करने वक्त जितना मिला है उससे अधिक है। ये कोई अतिशयोक्ति की बात नहीं है, मेरे श्रद्धा की बात है। एंड द स्कॉलर्स assembled here, I consider this as a great opportunity for me to speak a few words about at the end of this workshop. As I said, I personally received great knowledge about this Vāda through the work authored by Professor Tripathi ji on Vāda, the dialogue, discussion and debate, a great historical perspective that I never got through any other medium. Though I was trained in Gurukula system, where the Vāda method was employed for teaching, and Vāda method was particularly taught, and the science of Vāda was discussed and science of Vāda was taught to us, especially through Vāda Lakshana Granthas. And also I have attended many Vādarthas. And despite of that, I never had an idea about the historical development of this Vāda tradition. First time when I received the copy of this book from Acharya Tripathi ji, I was going through that. Then I was much benefited with the historical perspective of entire Vāda tradition of India. Today, I don't go into the details, and I attended in these 4 lectures, I could attend only 2 lectures. And other days, though I wanted to attend, but I could not. Something I may be missing, but definitely I will attend the lectures online. So I have been asked by Professor Tripathi to say a few words. And I'm not going to give a lecture here because this is not the time for a lecture. But definitely I would like to discuss a few things which are very important that I consider. First of all, this entire exercise of Vāda Katha, why this is? As we understand, human minds need confirmation or validity of their activity, fruitfulness of their activity, before they take any action. Basically, in social life, we need a collective decisions, and without such common agreement, we cannot proceed with any activity, that to social activities. So when we should develop a common agreement, we should resolve the disputes and disagreements. And the people found that it is not only in the philosophical arena. In day-to-day life, people understood that the dialogue is the only way out to resolve the issues and disputes. Therefore, this Vāda is very simple. Dialogue is known to everyone. But why the science of dialogue is required? So when we look at this, this science of Vāda Katha, the dialogue, we will come across 3 important points. One is language, because the common agreement takes place only through the language. As we all know, all linguists, especially birthright specialists, know that nasosti pratyayo loke nashabdanugamadrate anuvidhamiva jnanam sarvam shabdena bhasate. The whole world, in one sense, is the creation of the shabda, and no knowledge, no our belief or our cognitive events possible without language. I cannot say I know this without language. So language is is intertwined with our understanding. So without anybody's external person, even inside our thinking process, we need a language. So language is one. Without language, I cannot have a thought, and I cannot create a thought. And secondly, I need a language to communicate. This is second. One is thought, thinking process, where I need a language. And the second one is communication. So in order to communicate my thought to others, I need a medium, that is language. And language, unless and until language becomes unambiguous, I cannot communicate. The true communication is possible through only unambiguous language. So ambiguity of language spoils the communication. Therefore, this unambiguous language was very important in any sort of dialogues, any sort of Vāda Katha. So in order to achieve this unambiguity, in order to avoid this ambiguity, certain structures are required, certain rules, certain grammar for language. That sort of language is required. So this sort of, it is not regular grammar, I'm telling. In order to remove the ambiguity, we need to develop a grammar for language. So this is first attempt of our scientist of Vāda. The second point is Vāda Paddhati. Because in order to achieve a conclusion, we are placing the arguments. If there are no rules, when many people start arguing and no conclusion is possible, because everyone says whatever comes to his mind, and nobody will understand what is happening here. That becomes kalaha. Therefore, in order to take the Vāda to conclusion, certain rules are needed, certain procedures are found. These tested procedures are called Vāda Paddhati, the way of placing the arguments. You should do this, you should not do this. These are do's and don'ts in placing the arguments in a Vāda Katha are defined by various scientists. The third point is Sangati. If there is no proper connectivity, proper connection, proper logical connection, then the whole idea becomes fertile. So in order to achieve a logical connectivity, in the science of Vāda Katha, structure is introduced. Very clear structure. In order to place your argument, you need to have 5 limbs in a syllology. So this sort of structures are introduced. So when I understand the science of Vāda, I need to understand 3 points. One is language, unambiguous language and its grammar, and Vāda Paddhati, that is principles of Vāda and do's and don'ts. And the third is logical structures. So if I understand these 3, then only I can put forth a perfect Vāda. So this Vāda Katha tradition was there from, as we all know that Professor Tripathi ji has explained in detail, from the Brahmanical tradition. I mean, Upanishads, if we see the Upanishadic stories, बहुत सारे ऐसे कथाएं हैं जहाँ गुरु शिष्य और मित्र और सतपति पत्नी और राजा और अन्य, इस तरह अनेक बेसिकली वो ज्ञान के लिए, तत्व ज्ञान की दृष्टि से वाद कथा प्रवृत्त होती है, लेकिन केवल तत्व ज्ञान के लिए वाद कथा नहीं थी. If we only examples in Upanishadic stories, we get the examples for the Vāda Katha which was employed for Tattva Jnana. But if we look at the Puranas, even for narration, even for to teach any idea, any new idea, the Vāda Katha method is used because it's so interesting. It can create a kind of structures in our mind, question and answers. These structures will help us to understand the different aspects of one idea. Therefore, it resolves many issues, many questions. Therefore, a kind of jignasa, creating जिज्ञासा को क्रिएट करते हुए, उसको रिजॉल्व करते हुए एक विषय को संपूर्ण रूप से निरूपण करने के लिए भी वाद पद्धति को उपयोग किया गया. So not only to reach out a conclusion, but to narrate the whole idea in a complete sense and to create the whole idea in our mind, even for narration, simple topic narration also, the method is used, dialogue method is used. We can also see that Vāda is not only between two persons, it is multi-logs. Sometimes we don't understand. There is a monologue and dialogue and multi-logs. I mean, multiple people participated in debating. Therefore, even in Mahabharata, we can see Pancha Pandavas debated with Krishna, Draupadi. And these debates were, very interesting because there are no two persons, there are many persons. So sometimes it led to some sort of kalaha. Even people were short-tempered, they expressed their feelings. And therefore, people came to an idea. It should not be a pralapa, it should not be a jalpa, which is waste. It should not lead to a kalaha, and it should lead to it should be a sallapa, so that it should serve some purposes. Therefore, without good purposes, we should not get into any sort of vada. Therefore, people came with idea of vada katha, which is in one sense, it helps us to accomplish our goals. When we look into the utility of discussion, I came across in Charaka. So many, even Charaka says, Jnanabhiyoga samharshakari bhavati. Samharshakari means it brings some sort of satisfaction. If I don't share my ideas with others, the sharing, happiness of sharing is possible through this. And it brings clarity in our understanding. And it makes, makes me a good vadin. That means I can win anyone. And it makes, it creates fame for a person. And there are so many other benefits or prayojana that we get. But these prayojanas may be very individualistic. Therefore, Nayayikas came with a plan that if you want to really win over the others, then you need to use this sort of katha. If you want to refute others, if you employ this sort of katha. And if you want to really accomplish Tattvajnana, you should use Vada Katha. Therefore, Vada, Jalpa, Vitanda, these various types of, especially 3 types of dialogues or multilogues are defined by Nayayikas, which are explained. Now, today, there are so many discussions about this. I want to focus one point. When I saw many detailed Vada Granthas, all these different schools of darshanas have complemented with each other. So, in order to develop Nyaya, Buddhist arguments have helped. And Nyaya helped by offering good Purva Pakshas to Buddhists, so that Buddha Darshana has developed itself. So these different schools are nourished by the opponents, because opponents served a good Purva Paksha for them. Without Purva Paksha, we cannot really grow our darshanas. So when I looked at these various Vada Granthas, what I found is they ultimately, there are 2 aspects. One is Pramana Purvaka Nirnaya. Pramanas are employed to conclude the things. And Pramana Balabala Vichara is also another. Which Pramana is to be considered in order to establish this particular Siddhartha. Then one more Tarka, which is very, very important, is Laghava Tarka. Most of the dialogues end with Laghava. Which Paksha has has achieved Laghava. That means which is simpler one, or which is simple, or or very brief such type of such sort of discussion discussions we find in Vāda Kathas. So ultimately, most of the decisions are taken on the basis of Laghava Yukti, not other Yuktis. This is very interesting, which I wanted to place before you. And of course, Jati, etc., Nigrasthanas are explained in detail. And one more thing I would like to place here before before closing my comments. Vāda Parampara, which I have personally experienced and seen. मैं एक गुरुकुल पद्धति से अध्ययन किया हुआ भाग्यशाली हूँ, जहाँ निरंतर वाद कथाएं प्रवृत्त होते थे। एक पक्ष और उसके प्रति पूर्व पक्ष के बाद उसके देने का पद्धति, इस रूप से कक्षाएं भी चलती थी और उसके बाद वाद कथाएं भी चलती थी। मैंने ऐसे कुछ वाद कथा में भाग लिया है, मैंने खुद पार्टिसिपेट किया है और हमारे ज्येष्ठ विद्वानों का वाद कथा में भी भाग लिया है। मैं इसलिए बता रहा हूं कि आपको इसका परिचय होना चाहिए। आचार्य राघव त्रिपाठी जी इस तरह के अनेक वाद कथाओं को देखे होंगे, उसको भी हमें रिकॉर्ड करने का जरूरत है, क्योंकि मैंने देखा प्रोफेसर त्रिपाठी जी हैज रिकॉर्डेड इवन the discussions, debates between Arya Samaj and Sanatana Samaj, and then later also in many political issues, debates he has recorded. But recently in TV channels we can only watch the pralapas where no debates are conducted to create some sort of some conclusion in the society. Instead of that, they create vivada, because vivada increases their TRP, not the samvadas. At this point, we need to really nurture the Vada Paddhati in order to avoid Vivada Paddhati. There, in Vada, one or two incidents I should really explain you. In Varanasi, Professor Adam Shuklaji has conducted one great dialogue between Dvaitins and Advaitins in Sampurnananda Sanskrit University. It is one of the best Vada Katha that I have ever attended. 15 days he has organized several times, but 15 days once I personally attended, he is witness for that. And Nyayamrita and Advaita Siddhi, these were the two different opponent works, granthas, and which is explained by Ganesh ji. And Nyayamrita was before, and again, there I named the scholars. Professor Manishastri Dravid was took one side of Advaita Siddhi, and Sri Haridasa Bhatt took the side of Nyayamrita. And interestingly, some discussions used to take place, and hours and hours, and one argument and answer and reply on that. In this way, at least 3 to 4 we have witnessed, and those arguments were not from any works, any written works. The scholars used to imagine the whole discussion. They used to take in a next level, and we would be astonished to see that. After first day, second day continued on the same topic. The topic was whether the abhava is adhikarana swarupa or not. The abhava in ghatabhava is placed on bhutala. Whether bhutala and ghatabhava are different, or even if they are different, whether it is swarupa or what is the relation between them. On this 3 days continuously we had discussions, and nowhere we can find those arguments in any written books. And very interestingly, Sri Venkatachalam was present there. Acharya Venkatachalam ji was present there. after that, I still remember the incident. He invited both the scholars at his home, and he did Sashtanga Pranamas to both of them. He was a great scholar and a very aged person. These were young, but he said, I have never seen in my life such a Saraswati Sthana. Therefore, this tradition is still continued. It is not that it has ended. I mean, why I am narrating this story is because the workshop, many attendees of the workshop may think that this is a historical. I mean, Vāda Katha was there in the history, and it has no more relevance because today nobody can do it. It's only just for understanding. No one should think that. Therefore, I'm explaining my own experience. I'm sharing my own experience with you. So this is still this Vāda Katha parampara tradition is continued. So we are fortunate, and all these recent Vāda Kathas are also to be recorded, and they should be given some space as an addendum to this book, I think. Now, coming to the end, my comments on this book. Professor Tripathi ji has really, it's not only in, many a times we think that it's a compilation. No, it is not a compilation. What I found is he has a mala karaha. So beautiful mala is prepared. I mean, these ideas, these definitions are scattered in many works, in many schools, and in the history we cannot find them in one place. I am really, the whole Indian scholarship is indebted to Professor Tripathi ji for this work, because he has created a beautiful mala, and where he has arranged these in a beautiful sense, because very sensible manner he has arranged, so that a student can understand in a beautiful way. I don't think these 4 days are enough for his presenting his entire book, and I request him to create a 3 months program, I mean a certificate course, complete 3 months, so that each point, whatever he has written, could be explained by him in a detailed manner, so that students of Sanskrit and non-Sanskrit field, philosophical field, may be benefited through this exercise. With these words, I once again thank the organizers, especially Professor Tripathi ji, for giving me this opportunity. I took more time than I expected, but I'm thankful to all of you for your patient hearing. Namaskara.
नितान्तं साधुवादः वयं धन्यतां नीताः कुलपतिवर्यैः वादस्योत्पत्तिः कथं कियान् वा तत्प्रसरः का च पद्धति इति नैयायिकैः कुलपतिमाभागैः स्वल्पैः पदैः बहुवत्गभीरतया निर्णीतं वादस्य भाषा का कीदृशी वेति विचारस्य महान् विषयो वरिवर्ति वादाय कापि भाषा निर्मिता स्यात् इति अन्यत्र न दृश्यते यथा संस्कृते अस्ति, विशेषतः नव्यन्याये इति बहु ज्ञेयम् अस्माभिः ज्ञातम्। इदानीं च अहम् आचार्य राधावल्लभ त्रिपाठी महोदयान् निवेदयामि यत् ते धन्यवाद ज्ञापनं करिष्यन्ति। आचार्यः त्रिपाठीवर्यः।
Sarvebhyo Namah. First of all, I offer my apologies for various lapses that have been committed in the conduct of this workshop during these 4 days. There were some technical problems and some inconveniences caused to even to as great a personality like Shatabdhani or Ganesh or Varakhedy ji, yesterday especially, and maybe to some of the participants. I will finish within 3 or 4 minutes, and I sincerely thank the honorable speakers, experts of this workshop, Professor Madhav Deshpande, Rajaram Shukla ji, Professor Varakhedy ji, whom we have just heard, Professor Ashutosh Dayal Mathur, Professor Kala Acharya, Professor Vasant Kumar Bhatta, who made his point, his statement today. Professor Ramakant Pandey, of course, he couldn't come, but he was with us on the first day, and Professor Rakesh Pandey, and Professor Balram Shukla, and Shastri Koshlendra Das, and not the last but not the least, Dr. Rishiraj Pathak, who presented his Samgana on the inaugural day, and very well-known experts, greatest of the scholars amongst us. They have been a part of us, and I am glad that with the cooperation of all of you, the program went on well. This workshop, you see, it could create a sort of dialogue which will go on. Professor Varakhedy is has rightly said that Vādas are not frozen in history; they continue amongst us, and very Shastric Vādas are happening, and Vādas on various levels are happening. And one remarkable thing about this workshop, that some of the eminent scholars from diverse disciplines, they joined this workshop. Some of the professors in other subjects, Professor Rajiv Ranjan Giri, a well-known critic and professor of Hindi in Delhi University, Dr. Brajratan Joshi, he is editor of a quarterly literary magazine Madhumati of Rajasthan Sahitya Academy, and a well-known critic, and Professor Bhagirathi Nand, Dean of the Faculty and Professor of Sahitya in Lal Bahadur Shastri Rashtriya Vidyapeeth, and several other scholars, Dr. Siddhartha Singh, Associate Professor of English in Lucknow, and Professor Kamlesh Choksi, Professor of Sanskrit in Ahmedabad, and so many other scholars from diverse fields. They joined this workshop as participants. As many as 52 participants are with us, and 12 experts, and taken me together, 64 persons were attending this workshop. So I'm very happy that there is a jigyasa amongst the scholars to listen to. So jigyasa and shravan, these characteristics are there. And now we can form a core group as we discussed, and some of the experts have also suggested we can go ahead with the dialogues that have been created, a dialogic situation that is happening amongst us. And we can select some themes now for intensive discussions and dialogues. And with these words, I also thank my wife, Dr. Satyavati Tripathi. She looked after my breakfast properly before I joined the session. And my daughter, Malvika, for creating all the facilities. I also convey my heartfelt thanks to my worthy son-in-law, Saurabh Bhattacharya, who has extended all the facilities of his house so that I can work here peacefully at his place and could conduct all of this program in a proper way. Praveen Pandya Mahodayah Atyantamev Tejasvina Vicharaka Prakharash Chintaka Maulika Kavayascha Vartante Samskrita Sahitya Jagati Anati Sadharanam Tesham Avadhanam Vartate Asya Satrasya Te Sanchalanam Kratavantah Tasya Kratepi Tan Prati Sadhu Vādaṃ Samarpaye Tebhya Sadhu Vādaṃ va Vitarami. for the conduct of this workshop. The beautiful thing that has happened here is that at least 4 generations are participating in this workshop. Professor Madhav Deshpande, who is at least 76 years old, from California, he joined us as an expert. And then our experts like Professor Rajaram Shukla, Professor Shrinivas Varakhedy, belonging to the next generation, and so many participants from the 3rd generation or 4th generation, you can say, between 25 to 50 years of age. And now comes the 5th generation. So I call upon, with these words, I again and again thank all the participants and the experts. I convey my sincere gratitude to them. And I call upon 2 young boys, children from America. So, please mute your mics. Som Bhattacharya and Sagar Bhattacharya, they will do the Śāntipāṭha, and with this we will end this workshop. Come over here. Okay. Okay, yes.
Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashantu, ma kashchid dukkha bhag bhavet. Ya Devi sarva bhuteshu buddhirupena samsthatha. Namastasye, 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 namo namah.
Okay. So thank you very much. Som, both of them are my grandchildren. Som is 8 years old and the youngest one 5 years old. And hope that new generation is coming. They will also come in the field of Sanskrit sometimes. So thank you again and again. With this we end the workshop. Punah darshanaye anujani mahe. Namo namo.